Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Matthew Terry, founder and CEO of Suade. Welcome to People in Sales, Not Salespeople, a podcast where we analyze the person behind the salesperson. And I'm super excited to introduce my friend Mike from Scheduler to come join us on this podcast. Mike is a monster, one of the best entrepreneurs I know, and I mean that. And he has a very impressive background, been a software engineer at GE, held dozens of roles as a VP of data engineering and director of engineering. And I'm super excited to dive in. Mike, how you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm good. It's so funny because I hear you say like scheduler, and I remember when it was like we met for the first time. It was like you were a dial guide, and we
Right.
would get together. And so like our companies are. I mean, you think back to like what they were. It's so funny because like technically we're a first time founder, but I feel like on the journey that I'm like a second or third time founder by this
Mm-hmm.
point, just because it's like the
The amount of
iterations.
iterations and
We've gone through.
pivots. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is funny, right? You started to get together, which was B2C,
yeah, that's right.
actually, and then pivoted to the scheduler, which is B2B, which I'm super excited to talk about that. And let's dive in, man. Talk to us about scheduler. What do you all do, and
Yeah.
why do you do it?
So we have built an AI agent that helps you set and show more meetings, right? So meetings have gotten this like bad rap, sometimes like, oh, we have too many meetings. But like, look, for us, like people in sales, it's like if you are not getting high quality meetings on the books, you do not have deal flow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for us, it's like, how do we help people more efficiently get the right meetings on the books with qualified candidates and then ensure, right? Just because you said it doesn't mean they're showing up.
Right.
Ensuring that you have the right cadence to get high show rates, high follow-ups, right? And just really take that critical part of scheduling that nobody likes and make it an advantage for
Mm-hmm.
sales and revenue teams.
Mm-hmm. That's totally huge. And as someone who's ran an outbound sales firm before, no shows are a big deal.
Brutal.
Big deal because you get the meeting, you set it on the calendar, and then you
Feels so
just leave
good.
it there, right?
Exactly. And you're like, you just kind of cross your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And because you don't bug people, you don't do these things. And so what we've seen talking with sales and revenue teams, right, is we tend to track like two key metrics when we're looking at providing value to them. One is show rates, right? So actually getting those no-show rates down, getting the hold rates up. And then the other though is actually productivity of the reps, right? Because if they don't have to spend an hour a day confirming
Mm-hmm.
existing meetings, they
Mm-hmm.
can go actually produce more pipeline.
Right.
And I mean, the crazy thing is, I remember again back when you were doing Dial Guide and we were in Ocean stuff. I had no idea what you were talking about when you were talking about all I imagined was like people in call centers with these like headsets on, and
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue what you were describing. And now as we've done this ourselves and that we're serving a lot of like sales and revenue teams, I'm like, ah, that's what
That's what
like
problem he was
that's what
speaking
problem
to.
he was solving. I get it now, because I do cold calls still, and
You do them now?
yeah,
Okay, all
I feel
right.
like you have to. Like if your clients are, it's not a major motion for us yet because, as you know, outbound's all a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
So like we can't put in the number of dials and founder-led sales that like a true outbound team is doing. But to have that experience of I set a meeting off a cold call, did they hold? Where can we improve? Right? It'd be very disingenuous to like not be doing those and then
Mm-hmm.
be selling uh, solutions to help those
That
teams.
does that, right? Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
that's exactly what I think too with Suede because we help outbound teams, and I'm like, I should probably be using my product
Yeah. Yeah.
and hopping on calls. So I'm actually the
Yeah, that's
same way.
awesome.
I'm super excited to dive in. What I'd like to do is have you walk us through your journey from Get Together
Yeah,
to where you are now, and the mindset shifts,
sure.
the customer pivots, target
Yeah.
market pivots. Just quickly, I know it's a long story, but quickly run us through the different
Mm.
mindsets.
Okay, cut me
Yeah.
off if I get to it.
Yeah.
Right, because I mean, I think the first question is why did we start Get Together?
Right.
Right, and we started it when we became parents, right, and we had this problem of, hey, all these people that we used to hang out with, right, when we were all, pre-kids, once we started to have crazier lives, we just couldn't make things happen, right? Like schedules were crazy, etc. And we were driving back home from church one day, and Maddie was like, "This is ridiculous. I should be able to add something to a text message chain with our friends, say find time for lunch, and it should do it, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And all the people said amen. And we kind of went after that track.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the idea that we got into Ocean with, right? Where first met you
Mm-hmm.
in the accelerator. And I mean, we really built that idea through. But as we kind of watch the evolution of even like where were people using it? So where were people actually using Get Together? it was typically to set up like networking coffees,
Mm.
right? Like people weren't using it for purely social. They were already moving into that kind of track. So we kind of knew early on that there was going to be a business social component to it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then I think kind of the next quick evolution was we testing it in text message was a pain. So we put it in Slack
Yeah.
because we were like, well, it's just faster to test it there. And then right around that same time, Slack had a global hackathon,
Mhm.
right? And so we were like, what the heck? We'll put it in this.
Right.
And then, yeah, and then we won the entire global hackathon. And so Slack started promoting it. And we were like, okay, interesting. There's a market here. So we started selling it to customers for, I mean, dude, it was like $50 a month. It was like to communities, right? And then as we got into those communities, we started listening. We're like, what do you actually want this thing to do? And it was super clear. They were like, yeah, I need help with, setting meetings over email. Email is still king. And I was like, no, I never wanted to go that path. I think I remember telling you, I was like, I never wanted to go that path. So we started selling the product, but it was still this like kind of journey of who actually will pay for this? Like, where is there a budget holder, right? Because everybody, you start talking the problem, and they nod their heads, and you're like, "We pay for it," and they're like, it's gonna be tough to justify.
Yeah.
Right. But then as we started going deeper with sales and recruiting teams, what we realized was like, wait a second, these are people who get paid for booking meetings, for holding meetings, showing them, etc. Like there is a direct ROI here. And so that has kind of really become our beachhead is these sales and rev ops primarily, but then more and more recruiting teams who come in and they're like, I need to book more high quality meetings with high show rates to actually hit my numbers.
Yeah.
So here we are. We went from, friends and stuff up to
let's
B2B
set up a dinner
sales
together to complete sales.
Again, that's why you and I were talking before this, and it's like I feel like I'm not a first time founder. I just think it was like
right,
and
you gotta understand your like the problem, target market, and also do they have money to pay for it? Because you're starting a business.
Well, and it's not even, the interesting thing, right? It's not that money's not there in aggregate. It's who holds a budget, right? And so I think one of the problems with products that came before us as we went down this rabbit hole was not that people didn't agree that there was a problem. It was who had budget to actually put against the problem, right? Like there's no chief of scheduling efficiency at any company, right? So that
we should change that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but then as you know too, I think you were saying ICP as well. The idea of what people needs becomes so wildly different. Like if you're designing something for product managers, there's going to be some overlap with what we're doing. But like, let's say, things get hairy and stuff needs to move in terms of like calendar and schedule, the decisions a salesperson would make around what should be prioritized are very different than that other person, right? So having that kind of like North Star customer, I think is just, it's very galvanizing from like a product perspective as well.
And that's huge too. I want to get into messaging and how you iterated messaging through all these people groups and et cetera, et cetera. But before we get into the tactics, I wanted to ask you a question because you never held a sales job before.
No.
So what did you think about sales before your startup?
So spent a lot of time in Big Co. Right. And I think the sales side of things, because I was always in product, right? Maddie was always in brand. And she was with Procter and Gamble. And so her role right before we had come back here, right? We were out in Arkansas and she was on the Walmart sales team, right? So I think she had a massive appreciation for like a lot of that on the CPG side. But for me, sales was just like, I just got brought in at the tail end of deals to be like, here's the guy whose smart team is going to deliver everything we just promised you, right? So I had that love-hate relationship of like, all right,
you promise
this guy, like you can't say that, right? And they're like, look, man, like this is going to keep the business moving. And right around that time, I think I was complaining to my mother-in-law about this, and she had held a sales role at IBM very early, and she looked at me and she goes, at IBM we had a saying, you're either sales or overhead. And I was like, dang. So I've been like overhead my whole career. But like, as I thought about it, right, I was like, she's right. And as we've become founders who are doing founder-led sales, you start to realize, right, as much as you want to like go and work on your pretty product in the lab, which is my happy place, if there is no sales, there is no company. right? And so the appreciation for like, wait a second, this is but there's like an art to it too. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
as you start to get into it, you're like, if you have never worked in sales, you have this very caricatured type.
There's a stigma around sales.
Yeah.
There's this assumption that all salespeople are sleazy, but there is an art to it, right?
Totally.
You have to understand like what your customer wants, and if someone's going to pay you, there needs to be value
Yep.
there, and that value needs to be conveyed
Yes.
in a specific way. And there's an art to understanding how to craft that message and
Totally.
convey that message.
Well, and an art and a science, right? Like that's the neat thing
Huge
is
science, right.
huge science. I don't think I appreciated, you know, like as we've started reading sales books, it's like, oh, there's a real, and I know you guys develop these tactics
Yes.
that are very proven, and again, not sleazy tactics, because I think that's what sometimes people are, oh, you're trying to trick me. It's like, no, we're trying to actually like use these proven methods that provide value to our customers, you know, in a streamlined way that is not pushy, that makes them realize, I don't know, like somebody said this to me the other day, it's like, do you feel bad selling aspirin to somebody who has a headache? Like, no, they're like, give me
You
the
have a
aspirin.
problem, right.
Yeah, exactly. So like helping them see, it's like, you know, again, not convincing in a weird way, but like you are sick, whether you see it or not, the scans came back. We need to do something here, right?
Right.
And you know, the cost of, I don't know about you guys, but we've seen a lot of success flipping instead of just making an ROI call to a cost of inaction call, right? Of like, here is like actively, right, like what is being lost. And I think once you can point that out to people, they start to become, you know, and you can give value there first, they start to become like appreciative. And I think that's the weird thing, right? Is like, you knew this way before I did, but right, like the more that you can just like, that sales is about, it really is, we're all about this now. Sales is about giving first, right? Like how can you give like, you know, I think early on I tried to go the route of just like, this is why you need this mobile problems. And started to go to this, my 2 best sales calls this past week. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to overwhelm these people with value because at a certain point, people are like, it is feeling awkward now to like not start to like go back and reciprocate. Like I am receiving so much value that I'm like, wait a second. What are we talking about?
Yeah, as a salesperson, it's important for you to be the advisor.
Yes.
Play the advisor role and be as helpful as possible.
Exactly.
And even in follow-up emails, when people ghost you and all that stuff, you shouldn't just send emails that are like, any thoughts? When can you meet? Blah, blah, blah. Send them an article. Help them do their job better. Provide some sort of value for them and give them a reason to continue to talk to you.
Exactly.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. That's huge,
You're
man.
so right.
That's huge. So yeah, as you start a business, you realize that you had to sell to be successful. Were there any mental blockers?
Well, I think it was even more than mental blockers. It was just skill blockers.
Okay.
So after Drive made their, you know, their pre-seed investment, you know, I guess it was October 22, one of the first things that, you know, Maddie kind of said was, she was like, look, you and I have done a lot of things in big companies. We have never sold B2B SaaS from 0 to 1 million. Like, we need help. We don't have the skills. We don't have the tactics. And so we went and actually joined the SaaS Academy. So Dan Martell SaaS Academy, and started just consuming like the knowledge out of there. And all of a sudden, if you had seen my first demo, you'd cry laughing. Right? Like, it was so bad. It was so bad. It was like one of those, let me tell you every feature, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, it was awful. And, you know, but like going and hiring those coaches and like absorbing that content, right? And flipping it to the like, hey, here's what I understand about your problems. Here's what you've told me, like doing good discovery, you know, like flipping that into like specifically one-to-one. Like we improved just so much by saying, you know what, we're going to invest in getting better at this.
Yeah.
We're terrible at it.
Right. And that's good for you to have that mindset of, hey, it is me that is the problem.
That's right. Yes.
You know, it's not
I am the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people are like, well, they just don't understand my blah, blah,
Dude, that
blah.
was me, right? It's like, how do they not see it? It's so ridiculous. Like,
how can't they see this value? I'm clicking the button, it's doing this, but they're not surprised.
But they're not. Yeah, exactly. They should be having a bigger reaction to this. And, you know, it's so funny, right? Because if you put yourself in the consumer seat from a moment from anything else, and you think about how you want to be sold to and talked to, and then you're like, wait a second, what I'm doing to them is like all the things that I hate. Once we started to like realize that and flip it,
Yeah.
It was we got it really dialed in. And
That's huge.
which is good.
That's
So
huge.
actually, I would borderline say I really enjoy like our favorite weeks are weeks where we have lots of sales calls and demo calls.
Right.
They're the best.
It's fun to talk to customers, and it's fun to iterate on messaging and understand or see in those calls how they react to your messaging.
Yeah.
And it's also good to be helpful, right? And just,
Exactly.
like, talk
Well-
to people who genuinely like, get surprised and like you hear the gas and they're like, wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
That's great. Or it's not, right? And one of the things that we've done is when people come in and they're like, this is specifically the problem I'm looking to solve, I'm like, oh, you should check these guys out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like our competitors.
Yeah, and not try and fit everybody into the schedule box. Know your niche, know what you're good at,
Exactly.
and push them toward the right solution like that.
And I think that empowers them too, right? For things like referrals.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, you know what? You do run into somebody else, and you're like, oh, the way they pitched me this, I understand their product. I understand why it didn't fit for me.
Mhm.
But then they're not afraid to like actually send people your way and be like we had one just this morning. This guy was like, hey, I don't think this worked for the company, and then sent an introduction email and was like, but this other guy that I know exactly has this problem.
Mhm.
I think you guys can solve it because he's not worried that I'm going to try and
Yeah. Be
tell him
sleepy
it's
with it, right?
exactly.
That's huge. Okay, awesome, man. Now I want to dive into the tactics.
Ooh.
My favorite part. When it comes to the first time scheduler was trying to pull in leads, scheduler specifically, what was you all's initial outbound sales strategy to bring in customers?
So we've kind of floundered around all of this, right? And I think dialing in, and this is something that SaaS Academy really pushes, right? It should be like, you should have a dominant channel. You should be very clear on your dominant channel. And for a while, I think we weren't really sure, right? So we were like, well, let's do a little bit of everything and start to see what sticks. So we did, we bought an Apollo account.
Yep.
Right. We built the list. We started doing the engagement. We like ran, the sorts of things. We used opens to like lead cold calls and do that side of things.
Okay. Walk us through that real quick. Was it emails? Was it LinkedIn?
It was
multi-channel?
okay. So initially, yeah, good question. We were kind of running them all, I would say, like separate multi-channel, right? You'd go build a list in, Apollo.
The Apollo Prospector.
Yeah, you build a list in the Apollo Prospector. You would put that into a campaign. You would sequence out the campaign. You'd see who's kind of like coming in, right? And you'd start to narrow it down from there.
Mm-hmm.
Not super successful for us, I think, in a lot of ways because we didn't have it dialed in.
Okay.
We did do some, sales navigator, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, direct outreach, building, lists there as well. Also kind of tricky. The thing that has really worked for us, right, and I think will be probably the most critical part of our first million has been inbound off LinkedIn. So specifically inbound off LinkedIn has been that. And, my co-founder, Maddie, she has been the one who's really been driving that. So she has kind of said, like, how do I put, value consistently into into this ecosystem? How do I, because I think there's a few things, right? It's like, do I actually want to buy from this person, especially more inbound? Because, you can make that personal game early on. So part of it's just having people be like, oh, I want to talk to Matt.
Right. I like
Seems like a good guy, right? Exactly.
That all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's just like, okay, yes, I want to talk with this person. I do think that, they have an interesting solution out there. Like I think early on you can talk the solution a little bit more than, you can later, like directly talking to, oh, this is different and here's why.
Okay.
We've seen that. And then it's just honestly just been, off of inbound. So we've probably booked on average, I think Maddie's hitting about 2 meetings a day on just pure inbound.
That's huge. Okay, talk us through inbound. Is this because when I think inbound, I think ads. I think you're putting out content on
Okay,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
and people are DMing you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, correct.
Right. So
yeah.
So
no ads, no ads, all
Just
organic so
posts?
far, just straight posts.
Okay.
And it's interesting, right? Because like you have the direct effect of those posts, but what you also start to see is as you build relationships with people who have some sway in the channel with your ideal buyers, they start to recommend you, right? So we have put affiliate links out there. So we do have some affiliates.
Okay.
Like we do have a first promoter link. So like, if someone on your cast here is even like, oh, this is really cool. Like I would be able to, push this into my network. It's like, that's something we want to run with because this early on, because we don't have a brand established yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
You are the brand.
You
and Maddie.
exactly early on, and that's
Yeah.
not a long-term sustainable thing, but in the early days, like being like, you know what, okay, we don't have an established scheduler is not an established brand, but how do you establish your personal brand, get to there,
Mhm.
right? Build trust, get these reviews up on G2, show some real metrics, have some real case studies. That's when we really plan to flip to more of the outbound.
Yeah.
Because then people can
I see.
really so anyways, that's our
Then you
first
captured
O to
that.
one's kind of this very inbound motion.
Okay, so I do want to dive into that if that's okay
Yeah,
on
of
you
course.
all's specific secrets when it comes to affiliate marketing and inbound content. So as I want to regurgitate you all's process back to you. So Maddie is posting on LinkedIn. These posts, are they about scheduler? Are they salesy posts? Or are they about life, your kids, all that stuff? Is there a tactic to the types of messages that you all are posting?
So Maddie was actually on a podcast late last year with a guy in Australia
Okay.
named Matt Lockjev,
Yeah.
and he actually is absolutely dominating the LinkedIn game,
Okay.
right? And has a whole course sequence that you can go get, right? That Maddie was able to get through, being on his podcast and show and being kind of an early person there.
Yeah.
And he has kind of crafted this, bringing AI into it to help you kind of say like, all right, hey, here is everything about me, right? I'm not going to give away Matt's secret prompts here, right? But like, but here is everything about me, and using that to kind of help tailor in, hey, based on your ICP, based on your experiences, right? Like, here are the types of content you should be producing. Here's where you actually have some real authority to speak, right? Kind of helping you craft that message of like, okay, here's who I am as a person, because we buy from people, especially at this stage. We don't buy from companies, we buy from people. Here are places where you do have good authority content that's going to set you up as like, okay, not only do I like her, I think she's pretty darn smart.
Thought leader. Right.
Exactly. And then some more specific content, right? And you got to get the ratios right on this so you don't just come off as like, feeling like you're selling a product all the time. And if you're specifically dealing with this type of problem, go here. And like, I think what Maddie always talks about is she's like, you can talk about the problem all you want, right? Like if you just keep talking about the problem constantly, then people start to get annoyed by it with you and start to ask, all right, well, what can we do about it? Right. And it's like, oh, glad you asked. Now we're here and ready for it.
Right. Now we go into this.
I feel like, yeah, she should be the one sitting in this seat right now instead of me.
It's totally fine. I'm on a cruise somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That's good. And again, what was the guy in Australia's name?
Matt Lockjev.
Matt Lockjev. So there are some secrets that he is.
Oh yeah, the dude's killing it. I mean, he's constantly putting out incredible content. Good guy, and I think has one of the most dialed in ICP that I've ever seen. It's like business owners in Australia, this age, doing this X amount of revenue. Like when you go to his, he's like this. Like the minute you go to his site or whatever, whether or not you're ICP.
Yeah.
Now here's the funny thing too is we've even on our site, right, like have gone in and dialed very like we want salespeople to see that and say that's for me right off the bat. But the funny thing is, even as we've done that, we've had people coming in off inbound buying for the team saying, their first word was like, I'm not a sales team, but right, and then hold on for a second, but I still have this problem, and I think that's like super okay. What you can't be, right, is like somebody coming in and not saying like, oh, I understand who this person says they're for. It's okay if they say, will this also work for me? And again, that's where you got to be honest. You can't go through your whole product roadmap and do all that stuff. People, but I think that's been a really interesting thing to see is like people hitting the site, seeing our messaging, and being like, okay, I know who you're for, but can I also kind of join?
That's interesting. Okay.
Super interesting.
That's good. I appreciate you walking us through your journey through the sales tactics. I love exploring different founders' journey through that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because everyone ends in a different place.
Totally.
Right? And
what's the most common you've seen though? Have you seen one that's more common than the other?
The multi-channel outreach, as far as outreach goes.
Sure.
The multi-channel outbound has been the most common. Email, LinkedIn, cold call.
So hitting, kind of all three.
All three, right? And the message is a bit more on the salesy side, not the personal side.
Sure.
Like you see with the inbound. I would say you all unique in the fact that you are pulling in 2 leads every single day, just by the inbound and the referrals. So incredible.
Don't fix it if it ain't broke.
Exactly,
Yeah, type of
exactly.
thing.
And there's just many different ways to do it right.
I am curious though, if you're seeing more of the like one of the things we've been considering is, I think we've been going after, typically when we do the outreach, right? Because we will do that as well.
Yeah.
Going after call it like what we think a target user is a company. But I've been seeing a lot more about like, hey, you've got to really be less focused on target user, more focused on target ideal companies, and then doing kind of a like a multi-persona prospecting within the company, right? So getting much less targeted, being like, I am directors at sales companies, this side of things. Like,
Yeah.
I am revenue ops teams at these companies, which means I need to go win, 1, 2, 3. One of these guys be my champion. The others just need not to be detractors. Have you seen that taking
In
off more?
enterprise all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But even like mid-market.
Mid-market and small business, usually there is a defined champion title, or at least 2 to 3.
Just giving them a budget and saying, make your call.
The champion does go to the person who has the budget, which is usually a small business, is like the CEO or the CFO.
Typically. Yeah,
right. Yeah, but there's usually some person with that main problem that you reach out to, right? In an enterprise, there's a lot of strategy around hitting multiple personas at once, and then finding your way in, creating that champion, and going up the chain. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Huge. Awesome. And I like talking to different founders and different people who are in sales and have and define their own sales strategies, because it just proves that there's no right answer. It depends on who your target market is, depends on what the value proposition of your product is, right? You can't just go on to HubSpot's blog around how to write an email or how to do
that's right. Yeah.
And then just copy these basic templates. It's not going to work.
Yeah, that whole kind of like, I think you're seeing that backlash, right, against the overly templatized or even the AI. I've gotten the weirdest AI personalization emails. And look, I get it. I have sympathy in the space, right? Because like AI does hallucinate, and it's a giant pain when it does, and it's hard to keep that going. But just even some of the just like, I think I got somebody sent me one that was like, by the way, the weather in Cincinnati will be later. And I wasn't even like in Cincinnati. It was like, that is like weird.
That's not even AI. Y'all went to the API, y'all looked at my state, and then you just pulled in one stat. I don't know why.
It was weird. It was like such a
strange.
turnoff. I was like, what does this have to do with anything? Also, now I'm feeling like creeped on.
Right. Like, why are you stalking me?
Yeah, why are you stalking? Another person was like, did kind of like a geo-targeting, I think, on their thing. It was like, can we get lunch at specific location? And they were like in, another country.
Yeah.
I was like, please don't do this.
Right. Can you stop? Yeah. Yeah. That the messages that in which you could tell it's ChatGPT, especially if it's over a LinkedIn comment as well.
Those drive me insane.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools out there that
are gonna
automate
LinkedIn
comments. Why? Why do we like?
Yeah, we're bringing no value to
person like anymore. You just want to be this AI bot that's online and just get leads.
And I think it is that whole balance between like how do you hit scale, in a like how do you get the scale that you need, right? In a way that like I understand the value that they're offering, but like the execution is so off that it's a little off-putting. Though I will say, again, I'll go back to Mac Lockjev for a minute. One of his big sayings is he's like, this is also the worst AI will ever be.
True.
And I always think about that
one too. Think about that. Right today.
Today is the worst. The worst it will ever be. It will only get better.
Worst AI will be. Yeah. Which is scary and but also exciting. Because I'm a personal proponent of empathy will always sell better than logic, right? And to be empathetic, you need to be relatable, which means to the point where these AI bots can start cold calling people and having discovery calls for you. Yeah, they can, but is that the best approach for you?
I think we'll see a bit of a hybrid here, right? So, for example, we have one client who's like a kind of mid-market seller, works, for example, with a lot of solar companies. And, he's using, this is where I start to get really excited, because I actually think where this will start to be really cool is before we see AGI, right, like artificial general intelligence, we're going to see very sophisticated AI agents at doing certain tasks, right? So for example, our text to schedule solution can reach out to somebody off of a trigger, go through qualifying questions, So for example, I'll give you our solar campaigns in particular with this person. It can reach out, it can see if they're interested, it can give them using some Google APIs like a basic quote around how much they could save, and
Your scheduler does this?
yeah,
That's not even that's not even scheduling.
Well, like I said, I think that the market we're swimming in, right? Like we want to own. When people think AI scheduling, they need to think scheduler AI.
Yeah.
But if you can own the meeting, there's so much around that you can start to own.
Oh, for sure. I love that you guys are branching out to that because that's super valuable.
We have to, right?
Yeah.
But getting it booked is our core value prop. But the same client who we have with another joint company has AI cold calling, right? And what they do today, though, typically is they'll get on a call and they'll just see, is the person receptive? Can I give this to a person who's a real person who's going to have empathy on here and get to the next spot? And what it does, right, is it allows the AI, which has no feelings, to take the heat of the people who tell you to go, jump off a bridge, and allows the real people to only go and have interactions with people that are in a positive state of mind, that want to do this. And so your own people on that side of the phone, right? It's brutal if you're just getting hammered with people telling you to, jump off a bridge and other nasty things all the time. But if you're only talking to customers who have picked up the phone, they want to have this conversation, they're ready for it, and passing those on to people, everyone wins in that state. But what this customer said to us is they're like, okay, if I can get this person on and I know that they're good to, say, for example, book an appointment, I've done some very minimal qualification. How do I hand it over to scheduler and have scheduler then go and do all the complicated work of getting the booking and following up with them, right? And so what you're going to see, right, is like call it like these type of agents talk to the other. And if we do it right, it will be a better experience for the customer.
That's okay. That's true. But my slight pushback is sometimes people have problems and they need someone to convince them.
Totally.
Right. That they have a problem and it can have a solution. So for the people who pick up the phone, talk to the AI and book the meeting, those are the same people who will see the ad and click on the ad and book a meeting. But there are also other people who tell you to jump off a cliff, but they still have a problem.
Yes.
Right. And you need to be the person, and then you can only take another person, not some AI you need to be, hey.
So I actually think you're right on a pure cold outbound standpoint, right? I think you do need I think you need someone warm to actually make that sort of thing work. So yes, I agree with you. So like, go to the case of the solar one, right? These are people who have said, I'm interested in this.
Okay.
Like they have come through that. I think to your point, right? Yes. People who are pure cold outbound, it's gonna be a while. You're gonna need some signals that say this is someone who has shown interest before those types. Net, I do agree with you.
Okay. This is great. I love talking about AI. I love talking about AI in sales. So this has been a fun conversation. I want to switch gears slightly and talk about your sales journey in terms of hiring.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have to talk about today. I don't know where you guys are at as far as how many salespeople you have, but I know you have tried and hired salespeople in the past. How did those hires go? And tell me about that journey.
So, so we joined SaaS Academy late last year. So yeah, I guess it's been just over a year, which has been phenomenal in our journey. And we are big believers though on like having followed people. The founders should be responsible for getting to the first million, right? Sure. Which is the track that we're on. So we have not hired external salespeople, though early on we did try to, someone convinced us that their agency was right.
Okay.
And
this big outbound sales agency.
This was an outbound sales agency, which we used for a couple months. And they convinced us through the here is the sheet with the projections, and these are so conservative, and here's this like super impressive stack, right? And
it's easy to get people hyped around. Hey, I can bring you in so many deals. Don't you want deals? Work with us. Give us your money. It is,
and it was like one of those things, right? That was almost positioned as a certain guarantees and stuff, and they failed to bring in 2 months a single qualified lead, and it was brutal. And I think that further solidified for us. It's like I'm sure there are some super high quality folks out here where like don't get me wrong on this, but like if you do not have product market fit, you should not be hiring external salespeople. Like I absolutely 110% believe in that. Maybe there are people who can get around that, right? But like if you are not a founder who has sold, maybe it doesn't need to be the first million. Like that's our goal, right? As founders, we want to do that.
The first three customers, the first three customers, right? Like if you sold three customers, you could have a process, you could know your messaging.
Depending on your size, yeah, but like,
Right.
I'd say even for us, right, it's like we have, sales teams of certain size coming in. We have, recruiting teams coming in, right? Like we're getting, which is great, various income streams.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't think a number of those deals and would continue to, you could hand off to a salesperson who could go confidently in and say, this is what my product has done, had for these people,
Yeah.
over and over. I think you're setting up an external salesperson to fail. Or even like, I wouldn't make even, for instance, at this point, like an AE hire or our first VP of sales hire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's unfair to the salesperson at this
To
stage.
just be thrown in and be like, okay, sell the product.
Yeah,
and then you go build, and they don't have any accountability, right? Because you as a salesperson doesn't understand how to effectively lead that person. And real quickly, I was talking to Dana on a podcast like this, and he says a lot of founders who raise money early go and hire.
That's right.
The enterprise.
They'll just go make it happen for us. Right?
Exactly.
It's like, well, they'll take care of that pesky sales problem.
Right. Why we build a product and all this stuff. That's funny. That's a funny way to think of it. But it's important for multiple reasons for the founder to be in sales conversations, because that's how a product evolves.
Yes.
Right. You'll really understand what features these people get excited about and other questions you should ask.
Totally.
The salesperson's not going to ask, so what feature would you like on this product?
Right.
But a founder will.
Well, not only that, I don't think they necessarily have the authority at that point too. Mm-hmm. They can't go make and they can't have these commits outside. It's like only you as the founder can say my product, my roadmap, my whatever will do this. It is, until we have a repeatable process with dialed in messaging where the only thing we need is to bring more into the top of the funnel. Our goal is and our plan is not to hire externally for sales. Just it is not fair to that person.
Yeah. Awesome. Dude, love that and completely agree. What's been the most rewarding part of going through the challenge of sales?
I mean, I've got my, we don't have our first dollar anymore, but I got my first Stripe over there that I keep it back. $50. Oh man, I came out. I think we went and had like $100 steaks that night off of just like because
it's exciting, like a first customer.
It's so cool.
Money come through.
It's so cool. We didn't even have when I had sold him because I was like, I'm not even gonna bother setting up Stripe until we have a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
I set it up that like right after we got off the call to get him to come in because I was incredible. Like, we didn't even have the problem before then of collecting dollars. But I think a lot of it is, and you get this as somebody who's done a lot of building too, as someone who, I've got one other technical team member, right, who's full time. And between us, we write all the code for this, right? So where it's excellent, where it needs to improve. And I think it's very hard sometimes as a technical founder when you still know that things aren't perfect to feel confident in saying, you should buy this, it will solve your problem. Mm-hmm. Right. And part of the thing that's given us is now that we've started to see these metrics come through. So by the end of this month, we will have saved $1 million in pipeline for our customers through recovering meetings they would have otherwise lost.
Yeah.
So, for example, people decline a meeting, and we immediately follow up with them politely. Hey, notice you declined this, or the times that work better for you. Here's a link to and curating that to get them back on the books. Mm-hmm. And then even just that act of, hey, this is Matt's assistant. I'm checking in on their calendar tomorrow. Can you make it? Hey, no, I'm traveling. Actually, can we do it Friday at 10? Boom, on the books, done. Those things slip through. They, this is what we called our meeting insurance product, right? And what we started to see is real results, real pipeline recovery for our customers. It allows you to walk into those conversations and say, hey, when I'm asking you, for X $100 a month, I feel really good about it because I know what the average ROI I'm providing. And quite frankly, I'm probably undercharging at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm confident. I know you have this problem because I see everybody has this problem. I know I can get you money back on the table. And so when I ask for this amount, I feel good about it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
So it's been kind of that transitioning from almost being like, I have to convince you that it's definitely worth
this, and
yeah, and
flips it.
Yeah, it kind of flips it to I'm confident at this point in the conversation you have this problem. I'm confident we can solve it. And you know what? And we've said this several people. Like, if we do not give you, X in one case, $100,000 back in 3 months, we'll give you a refund.
That's how confident you all are.
Yeah, we have no
That's huge.
refunds. So,
Yes.
that's been sick, you know?
Yeah.
There have been no refunds.
That's powerful. That's powerful. There's a lot there. And it's also powerful to see people understand the value of your product and
Yes.
write a check.
Totally.
And just like say, yeah, here's some money because I want this value.
You know, and I've posted about this a few times on LinkedIn too, though. But like early customers are a startup's biggest heroes because at some point they are taking leadership. Like,
Right.
You
Right.
are
At the end of the day,
yeah.
the code is almost there. You think it'll get there. But
Everything
they
in the
believe it.
lab might be working well. You're gonna botch it in the
Right.
field. You know what I
Right.
mean? And for what I think that is though, like when startups are building brand new products, like that is one of our biggest kind of advantages though, is when you are a large company, you can't afford to put too much egg on your face at once. But early customers who are willing to take a fly on products that, okay, maybe this will, maybe this won't work, but I'll take a bet on you. They are a startup's biggest heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The early believers are startups' biggest heroes.
Shout out to the early believers.
Yeah, man. You guys are great.
Yeah.
Be an early believer. Be an early believer for somebody. That'd be my one ask.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening to this and they're just like, all right, you know, for whatever reason, it's like, go take a fly on that early startup. You know what I mean? Like,
he's got minimal customers. It's not super flashy salesperson sales message, but
yeah. Though I will say, if they have an absolutely horrible demo, tell them that too. I got on one yesterday, and actually off of a cold outbound. Yeah, I somebody booked me in off of cold outbound on a demo. It was a problem that I do have, and I was instantly reminded how low the bar is for good discovery calls.
Even in enterprise companies, even in established companies, I've been on some very poor discovery calls where they just walk through the demo.
Bad.
And they smile. And I'm like,
bad.
You didn't ask me a single question. All I did was listen.
Totally.
Send me a loom. Like,
yeah.
the other day. And you told him.
Yeah, I did. You know, I think
he
you have to be honest. Yeah.
You probably needed to hear it. So.
Yeah, you can do it without being a jerk, right? And you can do it with the like, you know, bro, this was my first demos were so bad. I still, you know, like we still work on them a lot.
Humble.
Like,
right.
Like Maddie will come in here and like she'll listen to my demos. Sometimes listen to hers. Just you I think that's the other thing is like with your founders too. Like again, you know, somebody else said I think Jason Lemkin. You follow him on? He's the SaaStr guy.
I may have followed him because you reached.
Okay, you should definitely follow him if not, because he started the SaaStr conference. But he is always putting out just absolute gold on sales. And one of his big things is you should try to always have two people selling, because well, not iterate, but it's just like, okay, you don't know what's working and what's not if you don't have two people trying it, right? Like, so for example, I do discovery without slides.
Yeah.
I will pull up the live product and do something live and feel it because I'm so comfortable with the products. I wrote, you know, a great majority of the code. Maddie prefers to be like, look, I've got great slideware. You know, I'm confident in everything that I'm showing works, right? But like feels much more confident taking people on not like a feature journey, right? But like a, you know,
customer journey, like the buyer journey. Yeah.
Exactly. Like to lead them through that in a very efficient manner. And, you know, we are like always trying to dial in, right? Like which one is more efficient based on what type of customer, right? Because we have different approaches to the selling process.
And you also have to understand that salespeople are all different too.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
so figuring out a sales process that works for different sales personalities. Is also important. It's
got to feel authentic. People know if you're like, oh,
they told me to read the script. And I click this slide at this time, right? It's not going to be authentic.
Yeah, exactly. So there's got to be some structure under it. I mean, you guys do a lot of that, right? Like with Suade, like you're trying to actually help people stay within a framework. And give them freedom. At the same time.
Some people are good at going off the cuff, and we need those people to be creative innovators, so that way you can understand how to change your message, which will bring in more customers. But most of the time, there needs to be a structured framework and a structured mindset in order to repeat strong salespeople. Right. Because if you just give free reign to 5 salespeople on one product, everyone's gonna be doing all different stuff, and most of them are gonna fail.
Maddie and I was talking about
that gym. That messaging creation gym is a talent that few have.
Well, you know, as a parent, Because you always think about that too. It's like, where do you have structure? Where do you have like not structure? Because we've got 3 little ones. And I think, a phrase Maddie always uses, freedom in a framework.
Yes.
Right. So like, can we agree this is the framework?
Mhm.
Now I'm going to let, what's uniquely you come through this, right? But we will not be painting on the walls.
Yeah.
We will not be cutting our own hair. Right. Like you can have access to paint and scissors.
Restricting my creative.
Yeah, exactly.
freedom.
Exactly. Let's put that freedom on the paper.
Right.
That's what paper's for. Right.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question around this, and then we'll go to closing thoughts. And I'm very curious to hear your answer on this. Is marketing or sales? What should a startup focus on?
It's well, what's your go-to-market motion? What's your product price point? Right. I think there's so much. So for example, if I'm selling a $5,000 a month SaaS, I'm not going to market my way to that.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm selling a $10 a month, type thing where reach is going to matter. I am very big believer, Blake Smith, who's also here.
Yeah,
He did a great post on this the other day, and I totally agree with him, and our coaches at the SaaS Academy agree. If you aren't doing about, call it at least 5,000, ideally, ours tends to be closer to 6,000 in ACV. So an average contract value for contract, you probably need to be doing more marketing and product-led growth. Because you can't sustain a sales process, right? You cannot pay people above that point. So
cold calls.
Yeah, you've got to focus on, you've got to hone in your PLG. Once you're above that though, right? Like, people aren't going to probably just come in and put in a credit card for $500, right? So again, all back to that like consumer side of the journey. So I think it's like, can I reach people at scale at a price point where they can put in their credit card, convert off of a trial and go? It's a real product question. Or am I selling something, that needs to be more, that's going to require a bit of a selling process, right? So, I think marketing, right, is all about creating demand. Sales is all about capturing and converting demand into dollars. So I would consider, like a lot of what Maddie is doing on LinkedIn to be content marketing. But we do sales too. So we've actually taken what I would call like a product-led sales motion. So you're seeing more and more of this, right? Like Lavender AI is another good example of it. You can use, like, people can come into our site, they can pay for an individual license and they can try it out.
That's it. Yeah.
They can come in, they can try it out. We don't target those people. But we will, if their usage is going up, go and target the companies that they're in. Because they have a champion, they have a problem, they're getting good, and that becomes,
paid for it.
they've already paid for it,
Right,
and now they are a warm sales lead,
Mhm.
right? And we will also create target accounts off of other warm places, right? But I think you've got to be really, really honest to just about like, is the mathin' on which road to take?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
There's a startup in my head that is gonna say, well, I only charge $10 a month, but I need 100 users to go raise money, blah blah blah. So I'm gonna hire someone just to get us to 100 users and then raise money, and
That's a
raise
terrible
$1
idea.
million. Yeah, that's.
Don't do that.
I
Now,
know there's
look,
a startup out there that has that kind of mindset to raise money, not build a business.
I think it can be different if you're like, look, I as the founder am going to go figure out, I'm going to go get these people to like come in and put it personally, and I'm going to understand, I'm going to have the message so dialed in that I can take that message to marketing content and know that if I put, X dollars in, I will get, Y times X dollars out. But like, we thought we would be a PLG product for the longest time. PLG is a fundamentally different product motion and psychology, because once you have truly gone like a true PLG company that is not putting sales boots on the ground at the early stages, you have to fully trust in your copy, your product's ability to convert, where I can just put ad money into the top of the funnel. Yeah, that's not the process for
that you guys do
taking right now, but like if you want to follow that motion, like, you have to commit to it, right? And I think Wes Bush, right, for those types of guys, he started the PLG, wrote the book on PLG, right? Like, go follow him, go look at his content, right? If you're going to be selling up market, you should be following and thinking totally different things. And you just got to be so honest with yourself.
Yeah. Huge.
Rant over.
Good. All right. So at the final stage of the podcast, this has been great. I really appreciate your insights.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
It's fun to just chat with you.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to, or just what advice would you give a technical founder as they start thinking about how to bring in customers?
Yeah, think about this a lot. Um, really listen. So look, if you're a technical founder, you have in your mind maybe what you've already built in some sunk cost, so you want that to be the answer. You have probably this idea, you're probably very convicted about how the problem should be solved.
Mm-hmm.
You have to humble yourself, right? Like Maddie did this, like she came in big time with me. She was like, I had this very firm opinion on this was the right answer for our customers.
Mm-hmm.
They did not share that opinion. And so I had to take a big piece of humble pie and be like, I'm not the one experiencing these problems in their shoes every day. They are.
Yeah.
Right. Like they will, your best product ideas will not come out of your own head. I've posted about this several times. They will come from your customers. So humble thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Stop building in a vacuum. You know who you are. Stop doing it. I did it.
Yeah.
Don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And enjoy, like there is nothing better than delivering something for a customer that they have been looking for, forever, that other people have, seeing them get value out of it, and then watching those, Stripe notifications start hitting your Slack because you solved it.
It's nice.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah. There's the hard-headed technical founder archetype.
Yeah.
And I would put myself in the yes man technical founder archetype, in which I'm a dreamer. And every single time a customer brings up a problem,
solve
I'm like,
that, baby.
Yeah,
we got
give
this.
me 2 months. Here's the product. I'm already building out the code and
Yeah.
the rope, everything. What advice would you give that person?
That
That
was definitely me.
Okay.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. I've finally gotten very comfortable. So in CPG, right, in like consumer packaged goods, there's this concept of just-in-time delivery.
Yeah.
Basically, right, you don't have a whole lot sitting in the back room. You only have as much to be sold.
Yeah.
I am getting much more comfortable with the idea of just-in-time delivery for our clients,
Nice.
right? So even being okay, selling ahead of where we are just a little bit to know for a fact the money is going to be coming in when this is delivered, right? Versus this, like, you hear this idea and you're like, all you can see is dollar signs down the road type thing, and you start building towards that without having the real commitment of like, okay, if when we deliver this, like, are we aligned, that it is worth this value, right? Like really pushing
how many
it
other
on that.
customers have
And
that
that's
value.
the exact right thing, exactly there. So even being comfortable saying, fantastic, let me get back to you on this, and checking with 3 other customers.
Yeah.
Because we've had a few ideas where it was like, this is brilliant, this is going to be it. We checked in with everybody else and they're like, and so we had to be like, you know what, guys, agree that there's something, like, it may be on the roadmap, it's on our Trello board, but like, in that honesty side of things, right? And this is why the founder has to do the early sales. You don't want to send a salesperson back to be like, went and checked in with the boss and like,
Right.
we can't do this deal anymore, right? That's a terrible position to put them in. You've got to be really comfortable with just that, like, with not saying no, but saying like not yet.
Not yet.
Though when you know
Or
it's
like
no,
a
you
great
just say
idea.
no.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Fantastic idea to put on the product roadmap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you follow Will Aitken?
No.
Dude. So that's
Alright,
probably like a good do after this.
Alright.
He's freaking hilarious. He used to work at Lavender.
Yeah.
And he has these t-shirts he sells. And he was like, it just says it's on the roadmap for his salespeople stuff.
On the roadmap.
It's on the roadmap.
Oh man.
He has the hats and everything. They're fabulous.
Yeah. For salespeople, that's dangerous.
It is.
Because I've worked in some sales organizations where salespeople are just selling anything.
Bro,
They say the product can do that. And then they get to the engineers and they'd be like, yo, what?
Again, that was my experience, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like,
yeah, back at when you were doing the data science. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. But
Very
we'll have to
real.
talk about that at another time. This has been great, man. What another advice question. What does it take to be good at sales? Listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it really is it's an open mind. I do believe in the challenger sale though. I think some people don't, right? Like listening really closely, but then being willing to make your customers a little bit uncomfortable in terms of their positioning, right? Like sales don't come from a place of comfort. Sales come from a place of discomfort. But they have to believe that you've listened to them enough to know that when you are speaking this, it is truth and not just like a pushy sales tactic, right? So if they really feel listened to, and then you challenge them in the right ways and you've built that trust through listening, I think that's where it becomes very powerful, right? Like we had a client who was dead set that something didn't matter basically in their campaign. And we, basically had to say, let us try to show you, this other thing. And he trusted enough to do it that when we made the change, his reply rates went from under 1% to almost 10%.
Nice.
And it was because they had to be challenged, right? Because it's like, you are also, here's the other important thing, right? You have to realize, this was when I was at Nielsen, I realized this big time. Your clients think about what you do for them less than 1% of the time. It is less than 1% of their day.
Yeah.
You think about it 100% of the time. And so they are also, if they're good customers, typically looking for you to, my best customers say, what do you think is the right way to approach this problem? Right? Because they've trusted that I've listened to enough of them that I'm gonna be like, this company that looks nothing like you solved it this way. Be like, I've listened to you, I've seen the trends in the marketplace, here's my recommendation. You like, a great salesperson is a great advisor.
Yeah, I completely agree. The challenger sale, it works when you've identified your ICP, talk to enough customers, have enough experience, and you can go to them and say, I know exactly who you are, your archetype. This is what is painting your day, and this is how we solve it. Where you talk 70% of the time and listen 30%. But when you're a startup, you gotta listen.
You gotta listen. And I think, most of the time while you're listening, you gotta bite your tongue just a little bit for long enough to feel like they've gotten to the end of their sentence. You already know what their problems are because, to your point, you've talked to enough of them. But listening to the end, acknowledging their specific concerns, but knowing you have a more general solution that is going to work with them like 90% of the time. I think, you've got to make them really feel heard, and not just make them feel heard. You should like be hearing
actually
them.
Listen to them.
Yeah.
Yes. But it is important to allow them to feel like they've been heard.
Absolutely.
Right? Because once they start talking about the problem, you could cut them off and be like, yeah, you're just like everybody else, so this is how we solve it, blah, 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 blah. But then you're not going to make a sale.
To your point, that empathy thing is gone. It's like, this guy just has commission breath.
Literally.
He's trying to get to the end of the sale. He's not, everyone thinks that they're a snowflake in terms of their thing, and they have unique things about them, right? Like they do. It's why agencies with solutions that are basically SaaSes get paid so much. It's because everybody gets to feel like it's exactly for them.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just listen and know them, know their industry, this specific problem that they have better than anybody else that they talk to, because then they'll trust you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. What's next for you, Mike?
What do you mean? This is it.
This is it. All right. I love it. You said the next.
This is what's next.
This is it.
I think I'm a big believer on that. Like any founder with a next product or project idea, probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people disagree with me. There are a lot of great serial entrepreneurs out there, but like, as far as I'm concerned, at least for the moment being, this is the life's work, right? If we get an acquisition, if something like that happens, fantastic. Until then, this is your life.
This is a sustainable business that you are
trying
to run and continue to grow.
I mean, the what's next is like get to that first million in sales. We're tracking on towards it. Go get it. Gearing up for what should be a healthy raise. If we don't get that though, for whatever reason, because look, I mean, raising money is tough right now.
It's tough right now.
And I would say, like, I think you can go get money, but getting it at terms that you're going to feel good with as you grow your business, is really critical. But for us, it's just like, man, let's go get that bag. Let's get the first million.
Okay. Get the bag, man. Start a business. Solve a problem and have people show you that your product is valuable by handing over some money. All right. How can people get a hold of you and see your content?
Oh, yeah. So Mike at scheduler.ai, or hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. And you can come in through the website. But yeah, I mean, I'm not hard to find.
Yeah.
Actually, here was a really cool thing. The other day, somebody was searching for ChatGPT for speakers for their conference. And because that's the new thing of sales.
Yeah.
And Maddie actually came out and said, you should get the founder of scheduler.ai to come do this. So even ChatGPT is starting to find us.
That's incredible.
I know. It was cool. Came up to us with a printed out piece of paper and was like, You'll never believe this. I didn't expect to see you here, but it says I should get a speaker from your company.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Crazy. Right?
ChatGPT vetting people. That's awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
pretty wild.
Thanks for coming on the
Yeah, well.
show. Super, super great conversation, man. And hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for listening.